Welcome, listeners. You're tuned in to the podcast that champions Caribbean voices and celebrates their stories that stir the soul. Our goal: to hit 500 followers in just 2 months. And every listen, like, and share helps us uplift Caribbean authors doing powerful work. Today, we're diving into healing, heart, and the magic of poetry with Trinidad and Tobago's very own Kevin Bislal, author of Sonnets That Touch the Soul. His words will move you, his story will inspire you. Now let's get into it. Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature to Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Some of them you've heard of, and some of them you'll be hearing about soon enough, as is the case with our interviewee this evening, Mr. Kevin Bislal. Kevin, welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Well, good night, and thank you for having me with you guys today.
Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. There's a scenario that I usually give to persons who are hosted on the program, and the scenario is this. Imagine that you're at Piaco International Airport in Trinidad, which you're from, and someone comes to Trinidad and Tobago for the very first time, and they ask you, Kevin, what should I try? Where should I go? Give me some advice as what I should partake uh, of this beautiful island of yours. What would you recommend to them?
I like beaches and rivers,
Hmm.
so I know everybody likes to go Maracas, so I definitely encourage them to visit Maracas or even Cora River, because I like the river more than the beach actually, and also Debe by the double stand,
Ah.
so food and lime and beach limes.
Okay, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, beaches and rivers, in particular Cora. And when you get time to go to Debbie, make sure and have some of those doubles. This has been an announcement by Kevin himself. So, take it seriously. All right. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to on your journey into poetry.
So growing up, I always wrote things down, whether it be like paragraphs or like just words. I always wrote my feelings down. And sometime last year, I met someone by the name of Delano Manganu. I think you would have interviewed him before.
Yes, 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 I did. I did.
Right. And he asked me if I am into if I'm into poetry. And I said, well, I'm into writing. So he said, well, write a few poems and let's see what happens. So we actually discussed sonnets,
Hmm.
and that's where the inspiration came from. The writing of the physical poems came from Mr. Manganu.
Okay, okay. In preparation for this interview, my understanding is that you would have received a couple of accolades for your contributions to culture as well as literature. Um, have these experiences shaped your writing in any form or fashion?
I actually think it's the other way around. I think being involved in culture and the arts have
Hmm.
helped me with writing.
Yeah.
I'm a high school teacher, so I teach agricultural science and biology,
Hmm.
but I am also involved in the culture group in my school. So what I usually do is I script plays and I script monologues,
Ah,
and that has stemmed from themes that would be presented through different forums, like Best Village, for example. So when they send out the guidelines for Best Village, I would actually read what they are looking for, and that is how I would be writing my pieces.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So it's the opposite of what you are asking me. The
Mhm.
influence of these culture and events, that is what invoked my writing.
Yeah, in some instances, we wonder which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I guess in your case, well, about your poetry, I know, well, talking with other persons who have been on the platform, I understand it's something that's very personal to a lot of persons. Can you describe your creative process when putting together these sonnets? Is it that you just write a couple, you go have some coffee and you come back, you go take a jog, you come back? To give us some insight.
So each of my poem is filled with intent. So I actually think about what I'm going to write before I write it. I
Mm-hmm.
know some people, like you mentioned, they would grab a cup of coffee and they would sit and they would just write things that comes to mind, but that's not the case with me. I
Mm-hmm.
think about experiences that I ha would have went through, and I would um, evoke a feeling from one of those experiences and use that to my advantage. So I wouldn't actually write the poem at first. I would jot down things that I would want to write or include in my poem. And
Okay.
then I would refine that now into the actual structure of a poem. And that is how I would come up with my poetry.
Okay. Okay. So there's some structures when it is that you're approaching the book. It's not anything haphazard, or anything that's sporadic. You approach it like you said with intent and with motive. Many of your poems, I understand, they explore profound emotions like loss, like healing, and hope. Were there any specific life experiences that influenced any of these themes?
My mom died when I was 12 years old.
Oh,
Um,
I'm,
and that was a
yeah, my condolences. I mean, I know it's been a while, but all the same.
Thanks, man. So when she died, I was 12 years old and my sister was 5 years old. And we had to be there for each other because my dad was always working. And that experience was definitely a turning point in my life.
Hmm.
And that in particular has influenced these themes in my poetry and my poems because I want to have my mother's memory and my family's legacy immortalized through my writing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's really the turning point of where I select my themes of like, loss and healing and like wishing that she was here, what she would have expected or what she would have want for me and my family.
yeah, yeah.
So that's really where the themes would be evoked from.
And I guess it's something about life, we're here, we're gone, but it seems that your intent is to labor, to have something in place that would withstand the test of time, that would remain afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, I want it to be immortalized through my writing, so it will always live on.
Um, and your poetry, it reflects a strong sense of transformation and of self-worth. How do you hope
Yeah.
readers would connect with it?
So when I was growing up and losing my mother at that young age, I felt lost and alone for most of my life. And there was always a feeling of not being loved and not being protected, like
Yeah,
most other children would have been.
yeah,
And I think this would connect with a lot of high school students. Being a teacher, I actually see some of my students, how they would react to losing a parent, losing a family member. Sometimes they are not involved in like peer groups,
mm-hmm,
so they
mm-hmm,
sometimes feel alone. And I feel like if they are exposed to my poems, it would help them realize that they are not in it alone. And a few of my students actually have read some of my poems,
yeah,
and I think I impacted their life because yesterday we had an ecumenical service, which is the sending off service you have for high school students before they write CXE.
yeah,
And a couple of them came to me and they were like, Sir, I hope we never stop speaking to each other. I hope we always remain in contact. You are one of the teachers who have impacted me. And there was one particular student, I remember when I started teaching, her mother had died. And I felt that connection with her because she was 13 years and I was 12 years.
mm,
And I visited the family. I always try to encourage her to do, whatever you're doing now, you do it with intent. You do it for your mom and her memory. And when she came to me yesterday, she said, "So because of you, I feel like I'm prepared to go out in the world and do good things." So it's always nice to hear your students come back and tell you those things. And that is the purpose of the book, to help people realize that they themselves are not facing these things alone.
I can't help but be speechless a little. I mean, when you say things like that, or when I hear people say things like that, gives me some goosebumps, because um, I guess as a teacher, you would be able to say there's nothing more rewarding than your students actually, than you seeing the effects of your work by, the students and how it is that they decide to just take what it is that you have taught them and apply it to their lives.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
that is something. One of the tropes in your book, and I'm not too sure if you probably answered this question already, but I mean, I'm going to pose it all the same. One of the tropes in your book was healing through community. How important is community in one's journey to self-discovery, in your opinion?
I think that um, a lot of people, their nature is based on their belief and their support system.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, growing up without a mother and a father who's working, trying to provide for his children, we had some family support. So my sister was very young when she would have experienced things in life, me myself.
Yes.
And having a community there helps us to figure out which course we want our lives to go into. Because sometimes now that I'm older, I have learned things that I do not agree with. I was taught to believe things at that age when I had no proper guidance. But now that I'm older, I am able to make decisions of my own. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that community support, that's both a positive and a negative. Some people might say, oh, they don't see it that way. But again, different strokes for different folks. But I think like that community support is important because it helps shape you as an individual. It helps you to understand or to transform into who you want to be.
Well said. Well said. In terms of just having a structure for persons to start off with, but eventually, like you said, or in your case, like you described, there came a time when you were able to, come to your own conclusions, make your own decisions, and find your own path.
Yes, so true.
If you had to choose one poem from your collection that truly represents the essence of your book, which one would it be and why?
So one of my poems is entitled Metamorphosis.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you know the concept of metamorphosis, but it's actually a scientific concept. It's where a transformation takes place. So most insects like butterflies, they go through the process of metamorphosis. So they go through from one stage of development to another. And in this poem, Metamorphosis, it speaks about how I have accepted things of my past, how I have accepted my hate and my pain, and turned that into something positive, not just for my family and myself, but for those who are around me, like my students, my fellow teachers. I even have a charitable initiative established with my sister. So this poem, it means so much to me because it actually speaks about transformation. And that is what the book is about. It's about transcending, self-acceptance, self-love. So the term metamorphosis itself fits well into the theme of, development and loving yourself and all of those things going from one stage to the next.
I didn't realize, but it seems that your background in teaching, you had mentioned you teach agriculture as well as biology.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it just seems kind of fitting how it is that, your understanding of these terms, you're able to articulate it, in terms of your responses to the questions and in terms of the poetry that you would have written. So it's just interesting.
Thanks. I think I have a mind that looks at things in different perspectives. So
Hmm.
a lot of people have actually told me, like during conversations, that when they ask something and I explain it, they're like, you know what, I didn't really think about it in that perspective, but it makes sense, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's really good to hear from you as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's only as I'm listening, what they're saying is true. Okay,
Hmm.
yeah. Um, your book, it touches on another one of the tropes that it touches on is voices unheard, finally heard. What message do you have for those who feel like their voices are being overlooked?
I think that this should be a driving force for people who think they are unheard, because many times we think we are unheard, but really we are being heard by ourselves. And we need to take that into consideration as well. Because if you think about it, we always hear people tell us, don't let the opinions of others define who you are. And if you think that your voice is going unheard, then in relation to that, you need to know that, okay, if I feel like I'm unheard, maybe my actions can speak louder than my words. So instead of actually feeling like you are being unheard, you do things so people can hear you through your actions. So you want to exemplify who you are through your actions and not necessarily your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Or in my case, writing. So people may not hear my voice physically, but through my book, they will be able to hear my voice. And
Okay.
that is an action in itself. Writing is an action. So they will hear me through my action of writing.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're a man of a few words, but a lot of action.
Yes, I try to be in that manner because sometimes, as the saying goes, empty vessels make the most noise.
Being a teacher, as well as being a cultural advocate, puts you in an interesting position. Uh, how do you see poetry influencing Caribbean literature and youth today?
Um, so a lot of students, they don't like to read, and reading and writing is an expression. Um, Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that with poetry, we are able to express ourselves through words.
Mm-hmm.
And poetry doesn't have to be rhyming. My style of writing is rhyming because to me, it's about a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But some students may not appreciate that, or some people, as a matter of fact, may not appreciate that. But literature for our youth today, I think they spend too much time in on social media and like scrolling through TikTok and Instagram. Whereas in my time, I love to read, and reading helped me a lot. And as a cultural advocate as well, using my literature pieces like my monologues and my dramatic pieces, it would help the students to understand certain concepts. And youth in particular, we are so involved in so many things that we can't express ourselves like we used to. Like we have this idea that boys shouldn't be emotional. Why? Why do we think that? And poetry helping them understand like expressing yourself through writing would have a better um would help them with understanding emotional intelligence and how to be in situations. So sometimes you may be angry and you might say things that you don't mean.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
poetry now helps you understand it on a deeper level. And with that, it may help them to understand their emotional quotients and how they could maneuver certain situations.
Okay. So far, from my understanding about you, you're a teacher of biology as well as agriculture, well, agri-science. Um, if you had the opportunity, would you be a teacher of literature as well, or teaching a persons how to write poetry? And the reason I ask is because I read somewhere one time that, the phases to learning is you read, you understand, and then you teach what you know. And I'm getting the impression that, having gone through writing a book, putting poems together, etc., that you might be in a position to teach it. Would that be a subject you would consider, exploring if the opportunity arises?
But I do teach English privately,
Oh,
but I feel like when I was signing up for UE,
hmm.
I went to a board school. So I didn't go to like a public school. I went to Asher Boys College in San Fernando. And
Okay.
we were always encouraged to pursue things like sciences, business, um, engineering, medicine. But
Yeah,
it
yeah,
and at that time, as a student, you're none the wiser. You admire your teacher, so you wanna take their advice and go out into the world. And you're this young grasshopper, and you're going to learn about life experiences. So you take
yeah.
the advice of your teachers and the people you trust the most.
Yeah.
But had I given the opportunity to study something that I wanted to study, and when I say I wanted to study, like not as like a hobby, but like to do some real work with, it would definitely have been language and linguistics or literature and linguistics. But I followed what what my teachers would have advised me, and I'm not saying that that is a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. Because of some of my teachers, I am who I am today in terms of my academic performance in school and UE. But if I could have go back in time and select something else, it would definitely be language and linguistics.
Okay. Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, like what you were saying before, I mean, we're thankful for the foundation and the structure that we've been given, and it's good that you could look back and you're able to learn from your experiences. And who knows
Yeah.
that as you were the grasshopper once and you're the teacher now, what happened with you, you can impart onto your students.
And that's what I do actually. I tell them, follow your heart, but also be practical about what you're choosing, If it is, you're not going to do something with what you are going to study, then you shouldn't do that. You have to be impactful in what you learn as well. And that is why doing biology and agricultural science, I became a teacher because it is what I wanted to do. It's just I wasn't sure what I wanted to study and at the university level.
Okay. Um, if a young poet or writer is listening to our conversation right now and feeling discouraged, what advice would you give to them?
I would tell them what I would tell my students. Follow your heart, write down what you need to write down, type it out if you need to, keep it close to you so that when you are ready to expose your true emotions and your feelings to the world, then do so. If you feel like now is not the time, don't do it because if you feel like now is not the time, you are not going to put your best foot forward. If you feel like you are going to do this and this is something that you're absolutely sure about, you think about it the first thing you wake up, you think about it the last thing before you go to sleep, then
Hmm.
yes, do it. But if you are not thinking in that regard, then you're not going to put your best foot forward. And we have to remember that with our writing, I don't know if any of the other authors would have tell you this, but in my perspective, your writing is part of your heart, it's part of your soul. It's something that you are putting into the world, something that you will speak about it. And once it enters into the atmosphere, it is never returned. So you have to be able to understand that you are bearing your soul to the world. And if you are ready for that, then you do it. If you are not ready for that, then you shouldn't do it. But I'm encouraging you and our young readers who may be listening, our young authors, do it, keep it until the time that you are ready to actually give it to the world, until you're actually ready to give it life.
Okay. Well said, sir. Well said. Uh, Success looks differently to many people. Um, in your opinion, is it about impact? Is it about readership? Or is it about something else?
It's definitely about impact because I want people to be impacted by my words, by my thoughts, by my emotions. I want them to know that you are not alone, as I mentioned previously. You are not alone. You are not going through this alone. It may not be the exact situation that others are facing, but we are all human and we experience all of these emotions. We experience hate, pain, loneliness, sadness, happiness. So it's really about impact for me.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, what's next for you? Are there any upcoming projects, more poetry collections that we should expect from you, or collaborations that we should look out for?
I am actually working on something. I mentioned it to you previously. I
Ah,
actually wrote a script. It's a local historical piece.
mm-hmm.
I am actually hoping that I can reach some drama companies, people in the drama and the acting field in Trinidad to portray this piece. I think a lot of young people are losing our culture, in particular the East Indian culture. Some of the things are being lost because we are caught up in modernization and westernization. And I want to, I am hoping that I can reach some individuals who can help me put this forward. So there's that I'm working on, and that is like a short-term goal which I am trying to get off the ground, you know. It's a pilot project and
Hmm.
hopefully it comes out at some point.
Okay. Well, keep at it, man, and keep us updated as to the progress of it.
Of course, definitely.
Where can listeners find your book, and can they connect with you online?
Yes, you can connect with me on my Instagram page. Um, it's Mr. Kev 6 to midnight. I will send it to you so when we are posting this, it could be up on the caption.
Of course, of course.
Um, and my book is actually on Amazon. It's self-published, so
Hmm.
you can get it there. Or if you reach out to me on any of my social media, I could provide a copy to you.
All right. Well, now we know.
Yes.
All right. Well, as we're about to wrap up the interview, if you could leave our audience with one final message from Sonnets that touch the soul, what would it be?
One message would be a line from my poem. It is called Bright Aura. And I want you to remember that you are your light because your aura is especially bright. Essentially, what it is saying is believe in yourself even if no one else does. And that is my message to our listeners today.
Okay. Message received loud and clear. Okay, Mr. Bislal, thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed at this point in time. I understand that in terms of your projects that, you have your work cut out for you, but we wish you the best in your undertakings, and we look forward to hearing about your successes. And when you come up with those other books, reach back out to us so we can feature you again.
Thank you, sir. I definitely will. And it was nice to actually communicate with you because I feel like I don't know a lot of people in the creative arts industry that does like books and stuff besides Mr. Manganu. Like I don't really have like friends who are authors, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So it's really nice to connect with you and be exposed to your page. And I'm seeing so many talented people out here, and I'm like, wow, this is a thing in Trinidad. Like people actually write books, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Not just in Trinidad, man. Tropical
Yeah.
literature creators, once they are persons of Caribbean heritage, we're there. So it's bigger than I thought it was, when I started this project.
I commend you for doing what you do. Say it's really good to expose people who may be considered unknowns. So it's really nice that you are doing this initiative. I applaud you.
Yeah, well, like I said, some of the authors persons know about, and some of these persons, authors in particular, persons will be hearing about soon enough. So I think you're one of those persons will be hearing about very soon, Mr. Bestal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's see
All
how
right,
it goes from here.
let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
And that's a poetic pause on today's episode of TLC Tropical Literature Creatives. Huge thanks to Kevin Bislal for reminding us that healing can start with just one poem. Help us hit 500 followers in 2 months. Follow, share, and support Caribbean authors. Be in the know with TLC Tropical Literature Creatives.